Right. Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start this lesson off by giving all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to all the brothers who are still fervently preaching the word in sincerity and in faith. And shalom to all the sincere believers. And that includes the Israelites who are scattered amongst these other nations and look like these other nations. Now, this lesson is going to be based on, this whole U.S. and Iran conflict. So through the Spirit, I'm going to read this article, get some precepts, and Lord's will, you're edified. It says a new U.S. attack on Iran could risk large-scale retaliation. If Iran's leaders believe U.S. strikes threaten their hold on power, they may opt to launch large-scale retaliation aiming at causing American casualties or disrupting the oil industry in the Persian Gulf, former U.S. officials, foreign diplomats, and experts say. It says, although weakened and facing a domestic crisis, Iran's regime still has substantial firepower that could inflict damage on American interests and allies in the region, disrupt the global economy, and trigger a protracted conflict in response to a U.S. military attack, according to former U.S. officials, foreign diplomats, and regional analysts. The prospect of Iranian retaliation has factored into President Donald Trump's deliberations over whether to order a military attack in Iran following strikes on its nuclear program in June, as well as discussions between the U.S. and its allies in the Middle East, according to current U.S. officials. While Iran retaliated in June against Israel and a U.S. base in Qatar, it stopped short of more dramatic actions that could have caused casualties among American forces or destabilized Persian Gulf economies. Iran's response to U.S. military action could play out very differently this time if Trump makes that decision, the former officials, diplomats, and analysts said, particularly if Iranian leaders perceive a threat to their survival. Says what could be different this time is that they do try to regionalize this, as opposed to just going after Israel or going after U.S. bases. Said Joseph Vattel, a retired four-star Army general who oversaw U.S. forces in the Middle East in Trump's first term. Vattel, now a senior fellow with the Middle East Institute, a think tank, said one possibility is that Iran would try to target oil refineries in the Persian Gulf states in a bid to drag everybody into this and turn this into a much more protracted conflict. Said the U.S. and Iran are expected to hold another round of diplomatic talks as soon as Thursday, according to administration officials. Administration officials have indicated that Iran must make major concessions on its nuclear program, including abandoning uranium enrichment to avert possible U.S. military action. Said Trump's Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, who is leading the Iranian talks, along with Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, said over the weekend that there were red lines, zero enrichment. So we have to have the material back. asked in a Fox News interview why Iran isn't cutting a deal with the U.S. under such intense military and economic pressure. Witkoff said Trump has asked him the same question. He's curious as to why they haven't. I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated, Witkoff said. Trump is considering a range of military options if diplomatic efforts fail, from limited strikes targeting nuclear and missile sites to a wider assault designed to weaken or even topple the regime. But what Trump views as limited may not be interpreted that way by Iran, particularly if Iranian leaders believe the regime's survival is at stake. According to former U.S. officials, foreign diplomats, and regional analysts, that if they see this as an existential threat, the reaction will certainly be disproportionate, a Middle Eastern diplomat said of Iran's leaders. Says Iran has suffered debilitating setbacks over the past year with the fall of the Assad regime in neighboring Syria, the devastation of its Hezbollah proxies in Lebanon, and the U.S. and Israel bombing its nuclear and missile programs in June. But Tehran still has a significant supply of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones, and it could try to retaliate with strikes across the Persian Gulf in a bid to sow economic instability and cause alarm among the U.S. allies such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. Iran could calibrate its response depending on the scale of the U.S. attack and ratchet up its actions if leaders perceive an attempt by the U.S. to topple the regime, said Joseph Costa of the Atlantic Council, a Washington, D.C. based think tank. Iran might calculate it must increase the cost of war, said Costa, who helped oversee war planning as a senior official at the Defense Department during the Biden administration. Last month, some Arab state leaders privately expressed concern to administration officials about Trump striking Iran at the time because they weren't confident their countries were prepared to respond to any Iranian retaliation, NBC News reported. In recent days, however, those leaders have been reassured that the U.S. will ensure they are protected from any retaliation from Iran, according to 3 veteran Middle Eastern diplomats. Trump on Monday criticized reports indicating that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, has raised concerns about a lack of adequate air defense munitions in the region to respond to a retaliatory attack from Iran. Said General Kane, like all of us, would like not to see war, but if a decision is made on going against Iran at a military level, it is his opinion that it will be something easily won, Trump posted on Truth Social, his social media site. Said, I am the one that makes the decision. I would rather have a deal than not. But if we don't make a deal, it will be a very bad day for that country, and very sadly, its people, because they are great and wonderful, and something like this should never have happened to them. I like how Trump is trying to make himself out to be the good guy, as if he cares about the citizens of Iran. He really doesn't. He doesn't even care about the citizens of America. But yet he's going to pretend like he cares about citizens of a different country that he might be going to war with. Says the U.S. has bolstered air defenses in the region, including in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, to help mitigate the impact of any retaliatory attack from Iran. According to two people familiar with the matter, they said the large contingent of naval force arrays around the region, including the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln and the Ford aircraft carrier, which is expected to arrive in the coming days, contribute to not only offensive but also defensive forces in the region should the U.S. mount an attack and Iran respond. The U.S. also has numerous squadrons of jet fighters and other military hardware deployed around the region. The possibility of American strikes, which could be a joint operation with Israeli forces, could pose grave danger to the more than 30,000 American troops stationed in the region. The former U.S. officials, foreign diplomats, and regional analysts said. And they said defending those troops could be an enduring problem in the region for weeks and months. More than 35,000 personnel are stationed in and around the Middle East on large, sprawling bases in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Kuwait, and other places. Many of those service members are accompanied by their families at those installations, including the Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. For now, however, the massive buildup of military hardware in the region could significantly blunt any Iranian retaliation, said Mark Kansian, a senior advisor with the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. Last month, when anti-regime protests swept across Iran and Trump threatened to intervene, the U.S. had enough military capability in the region to launch a punitive strike, but not enough to adequately protect allies and partners, he said. Now, he said, it appears the U.S. does have that capability. Hussein Kanani, a former officer in Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, told NBC News that if the U.S. attacks, Iran would take aim at U.S. bases in the region overseen by U.S. Central Command, including in Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. He also said Tehran might go after European military installations elsewhere if those countries took part in a campaign against Iran, though no European country has indicated it could join the U.S. in any military operation in Iran. As you know, we don't like to have any conflict between Arab countries and Iran, Kanani said by video call from Tehran. We just only directly attack the bases of the United States and Israel, and European countries, maybe NATO. Iran's UN mission in New York didn't respond to a request for comment. Iran has three ways to strike back at the U.S. and potentially its allies, experts said. They said its leadership could use missile strikes, proxy attacks, including activating Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis, for example, or terrorist attacks around the world. So the U.S. forces in theater provide substantial protection against missile and proxy attacks, though no defense is perfect, Kansian said, adding that if Iran launched a terrorist attack somewhere outside the region, it would most likely amount to an attack against civilians that would provoke deep international outrage. That after the June airstrikes in Iran, authorities in Germany and Denmark uncovered a plot linked to Iran, targeting Jewish institutions and Jewish people in Germany. Israel issued a warning about possible Iranian attacks in the United Arab Emirates, and U.S. officials issued a terrorism advisory warning about potential Iranian plots on U.S. soil. Said there's risk in all of this. None of this is fail-safe, said Vattel, the retired general. Yeah, so at the end of the day, things are very hostile right now. And even though on its own, the U.S. may have superior firepower and military hardware compared to Iran, it's not like those Iranians don't have a way of retaliating. 2 Timothy 3:1. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. And when you look up the definition of perilous, it means full of danger or risk. And clearly we are in some dangerous times. In particular, we are in a time of war because there's constantly back and forth between Iran and the US, or Iran and Israel. And we know that Israel is backed by the US. So anytime Israel gets itself into something, all they have to do is, use their puppet, America, to fight that fight for them. That's why the scriptures say, the least of the flock shall draw them out. And Israel is the least of the flock, those Israelis. And the Lord is going to use these Israelis to drag America into World War III, which is going to result in the absolute annihilation of America. Ecclesiastes 3:1. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Jumping down to verse 8. A time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And we are clearly in a time of war. War has always been on the table. That's why no matter how many rounds of peace talks and negotiations take place, they always end up back at the war table. Because ultimately this is what the Heavenly Father wants. Exodus 15:3. The Lord Yahweh is a man of war. The Lord Yahweh is his name. And that's right. The Heavenly Father is a man of war. And that's why if you have the eyes to see and you have understanding, you can see that the Lord is stirring up race wars. He's stirring up civil war and ultimately world war. And this world war is going to be the final war because it's going to be a nuclear war. It's going to be the war to end all wars. And in World War III, when it goes full blown, America is going to get absolutely annihilated off the face of the earth. And Israel, the land of Israel, is going to get cleansed of all those heathens that are in that land. Because it's not just Edomites in that land. There are other heathens as well. And none of them belong in that land, because that land belongs to the Israelites, who are the Lord's chosen people and who predominantly make up the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So there are heathens in our land. There are heathens in the Lord's chosen land. The scriptures tell you that the Lord loved Jacob and hated Esau. But Esau has taken over the Lord's chosen land. So when World War III goes full blown, the wrath of the Lord is going to be brought upon America, because this is the most wicked place on the planet. And his wrath is going to be poured out upon Israel, upon the land of Israel, to cleanse those heathens from his land. And see, when World War III happens, or when it goes full blown, America is not going to survive. Trump trying to act like America can just fight anybody and win any war. Typical proud Edomites, just boastful, very arrogant Edomite. See, the Lord is going to show Trump, and he's going to show Israel that there's nothing they can do against his will. If the Lord wants you to win a war, then you'll win. But if the Lord wants you to lose and be absolutely annihilated and decimated in war, then that's what's going to happen. And in the scriptures, it does tell us in Proverbs, I believe it's 16 and 18, that pride goeth before destruction, and an haughty spirit before a fall. And nobody is more proud than the American Edomite, the American so-called white man. They are the most proud and arrogant and boastful people you will ever come across. And the Lord is about to humble them greatly. Not only through warfare, but through all the different judgments that the Lord is going to unleash upon America. You see, America and Israel have no idea that this is the end for them. And when I say Israel, I'm talking about those Israelis, those heathens in our land. They don't understand that this is the end. There is no coming out on top in this third world war. They're going to lose, and they're going to lose horrifically. So, for all you sincere brothers and sisters out there, just continue to watch. Because the Lord is going to continue to up the rhetoric and, the threats back and forth between the U.S. and Iran and Israel. And eventually, war is going to pop off. Because what we must not forget is that Iran is backed by China and Russia. So when America decides to push things too far, all according to the Lord's will, of course, when America pushes things too far with Iran, then China and Russia are going to get involved. And that's when it's really going to become a party. So, hey, beautiful times, but also very dangerous times are upon us. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. In closing, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakodash. The Wadi Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, for putting his spirit on me to do this lesson. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to our brothers who are fervently preaching the word in sincerity and in faith. And shalom to all the sincere believers. Hope you all stay strong, stay safe, stay fervent, stay circumspect, stay prayed up. And Adawan Ratazah. Till next time, shalom.